What is going on, everybody? And we finally got here. This week marks the beginning of the NBA season. The season that we have been waiting for. If you're a basketball fan, especially we know how big basketball is in the tri-state area of New York City as well as New Jersey. Basketball has finally arrived. And man, as a longtime basketball fan, I've been watching the sport of basketball since I was 5-6 years old. Back when I was going to games in the Meadowlands, when I was going to New Jersey Nets games, went to a couple of Knicks games in the past. Basketball is my second favorite sport. I always get amped up for basketball season when it begins. And oh man, this should be one of the most competitive seasons, not only for the Brooklyn Nets, but in the entire NBA overall, because the Eastern Conference is going to be an absolute battle overall. I think this is going to be an absolute battle overall in this conference. And this is my outlook for the Brooklyn Nets heading into the NBA season. This is my season preview for the Brooklyn Nets as we get ready for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Now, in terms of the Brooklyn Nets, some of the offseason additions that this Brooklyn Nets team made. The Nets this offseason, they re-signed a couple of their key players like Nicholas Claxton and Patty Mills to 3-year deals to bring them back part of this team going forward. The Nets let go of a couple of guys, namely Bruce Brown, who ended up signing with the Denver Nuggets. The Nets also brought in a couple of players through a trade, obviously one of them being Royce O'Neal during the beginning of free agency back in early July when they traded for Royce O'Neal for a first-round pick. The Nets also brought in a couple of other key players later in this offseason. Actually happened last month when the Nets back in August, when they brought in guys like Markieff Morris and Yuta Watanabe. The Nets right now, or Yuta Watanabe. The Nets right now are just trying to put together as much depth as they can, as well as trying to see what they can get from these second-year players. Now, some of my keys for the Brooklyn Nets to have not only a very strong season, not only had a season where they could possibly not only just make the playoffs, but have a long playoff run going into this NBA season. Obviously, like I mentioned with the Brooklyn Nets, in terms of the thing that the Nets need to be the most important with to this, is health. The Brooklyn Nets need to find a way to stay healthy, and already the Nets are dealing with a couple of injuries to some key players at the shooting guard position, with the fact that both Joe Harris and Seth Curry, who are both dealing with ankle injuries right now, they will not be ready for the beginning of the season. Harris and Curry, both of them had off-season ankle surgery, and both of them are taking a little bit more time to recover. Ditto for a couple of other players the Nets brought in this offseason. A couple of other guys that I didn't mention. Edmund Sumner and TJ Warren. A couple of players they signed to 1-year deals, pretty much a 1-year prove-it deals, because these guys were effective players when they played with the Pacers, and for Warren's case when he was on the Phoenix Suns years ago, since 2016. Nets signed these guys to 1-year deals, seeing if they can get the most out of these guys that are of talent, but they can never stay healthy. Both these guys right now will not be ready for the beginning of the NBA season, both of them dealing with their own injury issues. Sumner dealing with a shoulder injury, and Warren dealing with a fractured foot that he's coming back for. Warren's not supposed to be back until at least about sometime in November, possibly could even extend it to December. So the Nets are dealing with a couple of injuries right now, but the main thing that this Nets team needs to do while heading into the NBA season is this team needs to remain healthy. That's the biggest key with this Brooklyn Nets team. I know there's other factors too, but the Nets need to remain a healthy team throughout this NBA season, because as we've seen in the previous years, Durant's missed time with injury. Irving's missed time with injury, and of course the vaccine mandate that happened last year. Ben Simmons is coming off back surgery. He's been banged up a little bit. As I mentioned, Seth Curry, Joe Harris, they're banged up. Markieff Morris is an older player. He's been banged up. The Nets have got to try to find a way to stay healthy throughout the season if they want to be a team to get to the point where we think that they're going to go, or most experts and pundits expect the Brooklyn Nets to go as a team going forward. So health is obviously the biggest key with this Brooklyn Nets team as we head into the 2022-2023 season. My next biggest key, as I mentioned in my previous videos, The rotation has got to be established, depending on the team that you play from night to night, but especially overall. You need to have an established amount of players that you know you're going to be playing night in and night out, game in and game out, depending on the opponent, but you know that these guys are going to primarily be on the floor when you're playing against some of these other teams in other weeks, in other games. So, Steve Nash, I hope he's put together a pretty solid rotation. It looked like it was coming together as the Nets were finishing off their preseason. It looks like that he has a rotation that he wants to stick with and that he wants to go by heading into the season with a couple of big men, a couple of power forwards, mostly a wing-oriented team. The Nets are a very wing-oriented team this year so far. They do have some size. They are putting their trust in a lot of younger players at the front court. But at the same time, the Nets have got to be able to make sure that their rotation is put together, and they have to make sure they stick by their rotation. They cannot be a team, and that's one of the problems last year and previous years. Steve Nash was too busy mixing and matching this rotation for the Nets. There were so many different starting lineups. There were so many different lineups. This Nets team never had a chance to build up any cohesion together as a starting unit and as a second unit. I think Steve Nash has got to find a way to put together a solid starting unit as well as a starting bench unit. So that way these guys can learn to play with one another on the court, learn where one another is going to be on the basketball court, and it's going to help develop that chemistry needed to be able to make it. You can get the most out of these guys going forward. So I really hope that Steve Nash and this Brooklyn Nets team, the assistant coaches, can put together a coaching staff, put together a rotation that's going to be good enough where they're not going to be too busy rotating guys in and out, changing up the lineups, etc. That we have one consistent lineup for the starters and for the bench going into the season. In terms of my predictions for the starting lineup, I especially believe with Joe Harris and Seth Curry both out for the beginning of the season, your starting lineup is going to be Kyrie Irving at the point guard. You're going to have Royce O'Neal at shooting guard. You're going to have Ben Simmons at small forward. You're going to have Kevin Durant at power forward. You could flip Simmons and Durant, whichever one, at the 3 or the 4. And you have Nicholas Claxton at the center spot. And some of the key players coming off the bench, you're going to have Patty Mills. You're going to have Cam Thomas. You're going to have Markieff Morris. You're going to have Yuta Watanabe. You're going to have Day'Ron Sharpe. You're going to have those are the key players coming off the bench to start the early in the season. Maybe you might have some other guys that could factor into play, depending on if there's any injuries, etc., like a Kessler Edwards, like a David Duke Jr., and then obviously Seth Curry, as well as Joe Harris, and then, of course, you have guys like T.J. Warren and Edmund Sumner. The one thing the Nets have this year is depth, and they have a lot of it. Sure, they're a little lacking in the front court, but they have depth. And they can mix and match this lineup, but they need to establish who are their guys that are going to be playing on night in and night out, as well as who are going to be part of the first unit and the second unit going into the season. Another thing that the Nets need to do, they need to put the drama to the side. And I've made notice of this in a lot of my videos and live streams I've been on. The Nets cannot allow the distraction of they cannot allow the distraction of the media, of the reporters, of the NBA, ESPN people, whoever it is. I don't care who it is. Twitter people. Don't let these distractions get in the way of what the common goal is right now for this Brooklyn Nets team going into the season, and that is winning an NBA championship. Like I mentioned, this is the deepest team the Nets have had in years in terms of having 3 quality superstar players with Simmons, Durant, and Irving, plus you have a very strong in depth around that lineup. That's the key thing for this Nets team is do not allow the outside noise, do not allow the distractions with this team get in the way of what could possibly be a very successful season for the Brooklyn Nets. So they need to make sure that they blank out all the noise, blank out all the distractions, blank out anything that could derail this basketball team going into the season because the Nets have talent. The Nets have a lot of ability on this team, and as we know, compared to the NFL and other sports, the NBA is a star-driven league. The Nets have stars. They got not just one, not just two. The Nets have 3 stars on this team, plus strong depth. They just got to make sure they don't let these outside distractions ruin what can make this team a very special team going into this season in a very competitive Eastern Conference. And what the Nets need to do, and one of my last points for this Brooklyn Nets team as I get ready for my preview today for the Brooklyn Nets going into the season. The Nets cannot get off to a slow start. The Nets have gotten off to some slow starts in previous years. The Nets cannot get off to a slow start this year. They have to come out hot out of the gate. They have to come out, play well during the beginning of the season. Of course, you're still developing chemistry by some of your key players that you brought in, off-season acquisitions, like a Watanabe, like a Markieff Morris, like a Royce O'Neal. And then obviously you're integrating guys like Day'Ron Sharpe and Cam Thomas, who are going to be part of the rotation for the Nets going into the season. You need to start developing chemistry, and you need to start developing your rotation. But talent alone can help this Nets team get off to a strong start. They have some tough games to begin the season, but the Nets need to be able to come out of the gate starting strong. They cannot come out slow, because we know for a fact if the Nets team come out to a slow start, the media is going to start talking, the ESPN pundits are going to start talking, the reporters are going to start talking, and the fans are going to start talking, the Twitter universe are going to start talking, and then that's when the Nets are going to start getting distracted by this offseason nonsense, this off-the-court nonsense. If the Nets get off to a strong start, they play well at the beginning of the season, and they just find ways to win. Take a note out of the New York Giants, what they're doing right now. If you find ways to win, all the noise, all the distractions, all the off-court nonsense, it will be put to the side, and this Nets team will be able to handle their business heading to this NBA season. So that's what the Nets need to do. Get off to a strong start. They need to put together a rotation. They need to channel out all the off-court drama. And of course, most importantly, this Nets team needs to stay healthy. As a Nets fan right now, I have a lot of confidence going into the season with this team. After all the offseason distractions that we had to deal with the Kevin Durant trade rumors, with him wanting to be out, Kyrie Irving with the trade rumors, him wanting to be out, with Ben Simmons coming off back surgery, with who we did not know was going to be part of this team going into the season. The one thing that we could say about the Brooklyn Nets right now, with all the distractions put to the side, with everything going on with this team in the offseason, this team is loaded with talent in a very, very loaded Eastern Conference. Nothing is going to be given. Nothing is going to be easy. Nothing will be handed to us. The Nets have got to go out there and they got to play gritty basketball. They got to go out there. They have to play well on the court, get rid of the distractions, play as a team, move the ball, shoot three-pointers consistently, rebound better, play defense better on the court. This team has got to come together as a team, and of course, they have to have a rotation established, night in and night out, who's part of the starting lineup, who's part of the bench, as well as what are you going to get from the coaching staff? Steve Nash and this coaching staff, especially Steve Nash, have got to take a jump in terms of their coaching ability. Nash is going into his third season now as the head coach of the Nets, with the most talent he's had in a while. This team is built right now for a championship run. You might disagree with me. The Brooklyn Nets are built for a championship run this year, and it's up to this Brooklyn Nets team. It's up to the head coach. It's up to the coaching staff. It's up to the players. It's up to the GM. Everybody right now is under the microscope with this Brooklyn Nets team. This is year 4 of the Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving era. Year 2 now. First year officially, but the second year with Ben Simmons part of this team. The Nets right now have a team that can win the championship. Will they? That's a question that we're waiting to get answered as the season starts tomorrow. But as a Brooklyn Nets fan, I'm excited. I cannot wait. This feels like it's going to be a good season for the Nets. I haven't felt this jacked up about the Nets. I know I've said it in previous years, but this year especially, with the depth we have on this roster, with the 3 superstars we have now that are healthy and focused going into the season, it's not out of the question this Brooklyn Nets team could be an NBA champion this year. Will they? We're going to have to find out in a very competitive Eastern Conference with teams like Boston, Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Washington. It's a very competitive Eastern Conference. It's going to be a fun season, and I'm ready for the ride, and I'm waiting to see what this Brooklyn Nets team could take us during the season. So that's my preview for the Brooklyn Nets for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Heading into the season, high expectation for the Nets. Cannot wait to see what this team is going to do this year. So if you guys like this video, please hit the like button below. Sub up if you haven't already to NYGJeffyT85 for more breaking news, updates, chatter, and season preview for the Brooklyn Nets. Turn on the bell for notifications on the next video or short that's going to be dropping on the channel surrounding the Brooklyn Nets. And let me know in the comment section what you think about this Brooklyn Nets team heading into the NBA season as we start the season on Wednesday. What are your expectations heading into the season for the Brooklyn Nets? If you have high expectations, if you have low expectations, if you're holding your expectations until you see what this team looks like on the court, if you're concerned about the competitive balance in this Eastern Conference and in the NBA in general, let me know in the comment section what you all think. If you're a Nets fan or if you're not a Nets fan, what are you thinking about this NBA season for the Brooklyn Nets as well as for the Eastern Conference in general, but especially for the Nets? So I thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. It's going to be a fun season. I cannot wait. I'm excited. I'm beyond excited for this Nets team going into the season. I cannot wait to see what the Brooklyn Nets have in store for the NBA and for their fan base heading into the 2022-2023 NBA season. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Take it easy. And always, let's go, Brooklyn Nets. It's a Nets world. And guess what? You just live in it.